Maybe maybe we'll just quit everything, move down to Florida, get a giant electric bus, plaster Poor Unfortunate Podcast on it.
It has
and
tentacles.
It's the Poor Unfortunate.
Yeah.
Yes, we'll blow up tentacles like on the outside of it.
And it's for all people like us who can't afford the $100 like Mears shuttle back and forth. It'll just be a public service.
The Poor Unfortunate Express.
Donation based.
Yeah. Pay what you can, but you better give a rating and you better listen.
Exactly. Hey. We'll give you a free ride if you give us a rating. You trying to get to the boardwalk? Okay, come on.
Yeah, we know the way.
But on the whole, I've been a saint to those poor unfortunate souls.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Poor Unfortunate Podcast. I'm Caroline Ametti.
And I'm Connor Perkins. Thank you to all of those who are listening, new or old. If you're new here, welcome.
To the Big Blue House.
We love having you here. Make sure that you hit subscribe or follow in whatever podcast app you're listening to. And for those of you who are returning, thanks for being with us again. If you haven't hit follow or subscribe, I don't know what you're doing, but you should go ahead and do that now too, because we have lots of stuff for you, and that makes sure that all of our content gets immediately downloaded to your device. Also, I'm just going to say right now, if you've been enjoying the podcast, or if you get like 5 minutes into this and you are absolutely adoring it, do not be afraid to give us a 5-star rating and hit us with a review, because that does so much in our effort to reach more people and bring more people into our Poor Unfortunate fam. So that would be awesome.
That'd be a nice little present. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think we do have some new friends here. I'm hoping, because as everyone probably knows, Brandy Cinderella 1997 finally came out on Disney Plus last week.
It happened. That was the thing, when we did last episode, we recorded, we were like, that's really everything that's happening right now. There will be a new announcement tomorrow or the next day or whatever. Brandy Cinderella coming to Disney Plus was the announcement. I was just like, shit.
If you had told me 2 weeks later that that's what would be happening, my mind would have been blown. But
it was pretty insane.
If you haven't, it's a little past the season now, but if you have not listened to our Christmas bonus episode, I think you should, because we were making wish lists, and Connor's wish for me, one of them was that Brandy Cinderella would come to Disney Plus, and it happened.
I think they're listening.
I think
and if
so
they're
too.
not, they should too. And if they are listening, they should also hit follow and subscribe, because that whole weekend just felt so magical. It felt like the world was having this big party.
It felt like a holiday. Yeah, it
really
did.
It was Valentine's Day weekend, but
true, yeah, and and President's.
It felt like the whole holiday meant a little bit more, which was kind of awesome.
I know, I agree, and we had so many wonderful people join in our virtual celebration all over social media using the hashtag Disney Plus is giving a ball. We saw so many of you watching it with your kids, with your dogs, with your friend that you're in a pod with, on your own. It was amazing. And we had so many people come together on TikTok, on Instagram, and just be like, this movie was everything to me growing up. And to just be able to share that with everybody was amazing. It felt so good.
Yeah, I just want to quickly shout out Katie Oxman, who is at Catherine Alice on Instagram.
Yes.
Who was our collaborator on that, and that was really special. So thank you, Katie.
Thank you, Katie.
It was awesome. It was so fun to do.
Yes.
Other Disney news. I feel like the biggest thing today, Wednesday, when we're recording, the Cruella trailer came out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to say, I already said this in the Poor Unfortunate fam earlier today. Cruella is a movie that I feel like they have been making for years now. They have been like teasing for years.
Yeah.
And it was never one that I was particularly excited for. It was kind of like, I don't know what this is going to be. I have to say, this is not a movie that I thought was going to be worthy of a trailer that it got. But if this trailer is any indication of what we can expect from this movie, I am here for it. It is dark. It is like Joker, Harley Quinn, like taking the side of a villain fully and not trying to apologize for it in the way that like Maleficent sort of did, where it's like she's the bad guy, but she's also kind of the good guy. Like Cruella is definitely the bad guy of this story, and we're just like loving the badness of her.
Because you
and
can't
I'm like,
twist
that's
like
fun.
You can't twist puppy killing into
No.
something misunderstood.
No,
So yeah,
you can't and you shouldn't.
Yeah.
And I think Emma Stone is great. I love the idea that Emma Stone grows up into Glenn Close.
I really love her. Yeah,
that's nice. I mean, I just love that it's also like the War of the Emmas because it's like Emma Stone and Emma Thompson.
Get out.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
So this is gonna be great. Fashion, danger.
I know.
It looks like it should be a fun ride. So we'll see.
Let's see what the world is like come May. I mean, I hope we can go to the movies and see it, but who knows? But
if not, it better be on Disney Plus, and I better be able to watch it.
I know.
All right. So this is our last Showdown episode of season 1. For those of you who don't know or need a refresher, our Showdown episode is where we take two similar things and we pit them against one another, and we let you know which one comes out on top. So far this season, I think all of our showdowns have been movies that we have pit against one another.
Yeah.
And this time we're doing something different.
Yeah. So this time we are going to be pitting two soundtracks against each other. And so we wanted to find two soundtracks that were on at least a level playing field, something that would be a bit of a challenge for us. And so the two soundtracks that are going to be taking part in our showdown this week are the soundtrack from Tangled and the soundtrack from The Princess and the Frog.
Two of the more modern musicals that sort of like kick off the modern Disney musical phenomenon. So it's an interesting time. So I will say right now, as I usually do, if you have not listened to either of these soundtracks or not seen either of these movies, take the time right now to do that, and we will wait for you. And welcome back. I had to.
I live for it. I love something that's reliable. So we're going to start you off with some of the background of these two films, and then we'll go at it. We're kind of going to go song by song, and then we'll open up the discussion and see who comes out the winner. I truly am not sure.
I think I'm still leaning a particular way, but I'm open. That's
okay, me too.
I'm
me
open.
too.
All right, so I'm going to give you a little bit of background information about Tangled, which hopefully you have just watched and or listened to. So Tangled was released on November 24th, 2010. It premiered November 14th, 2010. The directors were Nathan Greno and Byron Howard, and it's based on Rapunzel by the Brothers Grimm. The screenplay was by Dan Fogelman, who wrote Crazy Stupid Love and is also the creator of This Is Us.
Yeah, baby.
So,
Mandy Moore.
I mean, you know Mandy Moore is in it, and you
Book
know
it, girl.
that it's going to like take your heartstrings for a wild, wild ride. The original score was by our man, Alan Menken, with songs by Alan Menken doing the music and Glenn Slater doing the lyrics. The producers on this were Roy Conley, Glenn Keane, and John Lasseter being executive producers. John Lasseter, this was the moment when Pixar and Disney Animation Studios sort of came together. So John Lasseter coming in from Pixar, Glenn Keane being one of the lead animators and heads of Walt Disney Animation Studios, coming together on this movie in a major way, changing the game, as I talked about in my Disney Movie Marathon episode about why this movie is so important.
Yes.
So much there.
Pull that up too, y'all.
Yeah. Tangled stars, among others, Mandy Moore as Rapunzel, Broadway legend Donna Murphy as Mother Gothel,
and
God. Zachary Levi as Flynn Rider / Eugene Fitzherbert. So the budget of this movie is $200 $160 million. It remains the most expensive animated film ever made. Surpassing The Lion King, Jon Favreau's The Lion King. Like,
Wow.
I know I've said that before, but I'll say it again. The box office brought in $592.4 million in theaters, so that was nice. And then I did write out a plot for you, even though you probably just watched the movie, but here's one of my infamous plot synopses. In one of the most consistently underrated films ever made by Disney, they finally tackle the story of Rapunzel. Blessed with the healing powers of a magic golden flower, the newborn Princess Rapunzel is stolen from her parents, the King and Queen of Corona, by the covetous Mother Gothel. Hiding away in a tall, secluded tower, Mother Gothel raises Rapunzel as her own, concealing the magic of Rapunzel's hair, which keeps Mother Gothel young and beautiful and not a pile of old lady dust. On Rapunzel's 18th birthday, however, the cabin fever finally gets the better of her, and with the help of a sexy-as-all-hell thief, Flynn Rider, she leaves the tower to follow her dream and finally see the floating lights, a Corona tradition of releasing floating lanterns in the night sky to honor the lost princess on her birthday. While we never learn why Mother Gothel didn't tell Rapunzel her birthday was literally any other day of the year, we do get probably one of the best fantasy adventure movies from Disney since Beauty and the Beast. And if this hasn't sold you on the movie, you are not human. The end. So that's Tangled in a nutshell. Those are some of the things you need to know about Tangled.
All right. So, The Princess and the Frog was released on December 11th, 2009. The budget was $105 million, and the box office was $270 million. The directors are Ron Clements and John Musker. Now, you may know them from such classics as The Great Mouse Detective, The Little Mermaid, Aladdin, Hercules. So we already know we're in good hands. The screenplay is by John Musker, Ron Clements, and Rob Edwards, and the music, which we are going to be focusing on, is by Randy Newman. So this cast is also filled with some fantastic vocalists, including Anika Noni Rose as Tiana. We've got Keith David as Dr. Facilier, Jim Cummings as Ray, Michael Leon Woolley as Louis, Bruno Campos does some good singing as Naveen, Jennifer Lewis as Mama Odie, and we've got some other really talented voice actors who don't sing but are fantastic, like Jennifer Cody, John Goodman, Oprah Winfrey, Terrence Howard, Peter Bartlett. Fun fact connecting it to Tangled a bit is Alan Menken was originally going to do the soundtrack for The Princess and the Frog, but John Lasseter thought that since Menken had just done 2007's Enchanted, that the soundtracks would end up too similar. So Randy Newman was chosen because he grew up in New Orleans and he wrote jazz, so he was perfect for what they wanted to be, an American fairy tale. And so you know Randy Newman from Toy Story, A Bug's Life, Toy Story 2, Cars, and so on and so forth. So everything on the album...
Monk.
Oh, yeah. So everything on the album is written by Randy Newman, except for the credit song, Never Knew I Needed, which is written and performed by Neo. But we'll get to that in a little bit.
Yes, we will.
So Almost There and Down in New Orleans were both nominated for Academy Awards, but they both lost to The Weary Kind from Crazy Heart. And Down in New Orleans was nominated for a Grammy for Best Song written for a motion picture, television, or other visual media. I'll give you a quick little summary of The Princess and the Frog. So, in 1926 New Orleans, Tiana is working 2 waitressing jobs to finance her dream and her daddy's dream, who has passed, of opening her own restaurant. Her bestie Charlotte is hell-bent on marrying the newest bachelor in town, Prince Naveen of Maldonia, and she needs Tiana to bring her man-catching beignets to the party that she is going to throw to help her to do it. Plus, the pay from the party is going to help Tiana finance her restaurant. Once she's there, though, Tiana runs into Naveen, who has already been turned into a frog, thanks to a bargain with voodoo doctor, Dr. Facilier. Thinking she's a princess because it's a costume party and she looks like one, he asks her to kiss him to break the spell, but instead, they both turn into frogs and it's off to the bayou we go. There we meet trumpeting alligator Louis and lovable firefly Ray, and they offer to bring Tiana and Naveen to Mama Odie, who can use voodoo to change them back to humans. Inspired by Ray's love for Evangeline, Tiana and Naveen fall for each other too. But is their newfound love strong enough to defeat shadow demons and the power of death? Will Tiana truly do anything to make her dreams come true? That's what we find out.
Yes. You reminded me with yours. So Tangled was also nominated for an Academy Award. It was nominated for Best Original Song for I See the Light, but it lost to We Belong Together from Toy Story 3, written by Randy Newman, ironically. It won the Grammy for I See the Light, which is correct, but it didn't even get nominated for Best Animated Feature at the Oscars, which is a damn shame. It didn't make sense.
What?
It didn't make sense.
Okay.
All right, so let's dive into these two soundtracks. So we're going to break this up in a couple different ways. So we're not going to go, pros and cons like we did, we usually do when we do movies. We're going to break this between the songs and the score. And then we have a couple subcategories under songs and a couple under score. So let's start with Tangled. Let's talk about the songs of Tangled, and then we'll go to the songs of Princess and the Frog. So, I'll start with When Will My Life Begin, because that's the first number that we get in the movie. Honestly, I think this song gets a lot of criticism because it's really Rapunzel just in terms of the lyrics, just listing things that she's doing.
Yeah.
But I also think it's a key introduction to Rapunzel for us to learn about how unique and quirky and creative Rapunzel is. A lot of composers, when they talk about writing songs, especially ones that have lyrics, they talk about the moment in the song that sort of gives you an inner look into the character. It's like a stroke of the character in the song. And I think this song has some beautiful moments for that. And I think that the moment that happens is when we move from baking and puzzles and those sorts of activities to pottery and ventriloquy, candle making, because it's that simple moment that just gives us an idea of who Rapunzel is. She's not just your typical princess who does all the painting and reading and stuff like that. She goes into some of these weird hobbies because she's creative and she's quirky and she's not this polished, refined kind of person. She's clunky. And I think that's a really good insight to her character. And definitely the lyrics of the song put us in her routine, where we feel like we're getting stuck and we're okay, what else is she doing? What else is she doing? And we can feel it. So I think it actually does what it sets out to do. People are right in that it isn't very complicated in terms of the actual lyrics for the song.
Yeah.
But I think that it's very effective.
And I love the closing moment too, when everything slows down and she's tomorrow night. I love that section. That's a nice nod to classic Disney princess, dreaminess, softness. I love that. I think that's really nice.
I agree.
I think Mother Knows Best is so clever in terms of the disasters that she describes that are going to happen. They're hilarious. And I think just the tone of the classic mom guilting is just completely spot on. And I think that's such a key to Mother Gothel is on the surface, she's classic mom being oh, you're not listening to me. I'm sad. And I just love that it's hiding something more sinister underneath.
Yeah. My next sort of moment that I've sort of highlighted in lyrics is When Will My Life Begin, the second reprise. So not the first one that's in there that got cut from the film.
Yeah.
And there are two lyrical moments that just always grab me when I hear it. And it all happens before she leaves the tower, the moment when she comes out.
Yeah.
And one is the first line, look at the world so close and I'm halfway to it. Beautiful, beautiful. It's so articulate in terms of no notes. But the second one that I love is right before she leaves the tower and she says, should I? No, here I go. So right then in that moment, it gives us a glimpse of what's to come in her sort of struggle with herself of leaving, not just because of what she thinks her mother would think, but because of her own inner ability. That's the moment that we see it's not just her mother. There's something in her that's terrified of leaving. And that moment of just like, should I? No, that back and forth is something that's so real.
Yeah.
It gives us so much insight into Rapunzel and her struggle. So I love
I think
that
it
lyric.
also prevents, the fact that they're on the album that there are 2 reprises.
Mm-hmm.
I think it keeps it fresh. Like, I don't ever get tired of this theme and this song coming back again because such different things are done with it. It's not even just like, oh, I'm going to sing it wistfully this time. No, she's going through something different using the same structure.
Yeah, and it's very deliberate, and it's wholly Rapunzel's voice.
Yeah.
In that moment where it's like, should I? No, here I go. We're not going to do some sort of like artsy fartsy like insanely poetic version. It's like, no, Rapunzel is just like, should I? No, here I go.
Yeah.
Like, because that's how she's working. Her brain is moving so quickly all the time. The next song obviously is Mother Knows Best, the reprise, which is, I think, one of my favorite villain moments of all time.
Oh my God. Yes.
I have a lot to say about this song, but it actually kind of fits better in our section where we sort of like talk about reprises in general. So I'm going to save it, but just know that I'm going to talk a little bit about the lyrics of this song when I get to that.
For me, this reprise is the first time that I ever watched Tangled. This reprise is what made me say, wait, I think this is about to be one of my favorite Disney movies ever. It just pushed it into another category for me.
Yeah.
It's so dark. It's like a little, like, something about it feels Sondheim to me. It's so sinister. It just adds a layer of depth to the villain that gives the story such higher stakes. I think it's
she's
amazing.
not like, she's not a big bad who operates in the same way as most of the big bads that we usually see. I'll have more to say about that in a minute, but moving on to the lyrics of the big showstopper love song, I See the Light. This is, I think, where we get the best lyrics that Tangled has to offer. They're simplistic. Each line is like it's a gem. And this is where we get more of the poetic side of things. The lyric that always jumps out to me as just being just so well crafted is when Flynn and Rapunzel finally sing together and they say, and at last I see the light, and it's like the fog has lifted. And at last I see the light, and it's like the sky is new. And it's warm and real and bright, and the world has somehow shifted. All at once, everything is different now that I see you. Like, all at once, everything is different now that I see you. Like,
that is like the perfect description of love.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's exactly the one I had written down too.
I know. I wrote submitted without comment, but I'm going to give some comments because I have to. It's exactly what you said of like, that is what it's like to fall in love. And what I love about this song is that it's a love song where they're realizing that they're falling for each other in the song, or realizing how far they have fallen for each other in the song. God, it's so good.
I love that it's the first time that Flynn voluntarily sings.
Yeah.
He sings in I've Got a Dream, but that's because they make him. And this is the first time that he wants to do it on his own. And I think that's such a clever device, and it makes such perfect sense.
Yeah, I think it's also so smart in the way that this song is presented, of the verses being internal monologues for them, where it's voiceover sung over. And then when we get to the moment where the two voices combined, they are just singing outright to each other, where it's like they have those moments to themselves. It just gave me
a little chill.
Where they realize it, and then they're like, and now I'm saying it to you because I have to. And then lastly, Something That I Want, which is our end credit song. This song is an effing bop.
I love it. That's exactly what I wrote. I love this song so much.
Grace Potter. I mean, I love the tradition of the Renaissance period of having the end credit song being sort of like a title song sung in a sort of pop way.
Yeah.
Both Princess and the Frog and Tangled, actually, this is the moment where they didn't do that. So they're trying to figure out what this all is. They brought back this, like, let's get a modern artist to do a pop rendition of a song that has something to do with this movie, which we see sometimes happening in some of those early 2000s. movie. Sometimes it doesn't.
I just love the references to the characters in the song that are just generic enough that it works as a pop song if you've never seen the movie. It's just like
Yeah.
you can follow along to this love story that you've never heard before. But then when you really listen, you're like, oh my God, that's Rapunzel and Flynn. Oh my gosh. And I just really also enjoy that because we had a real love song ballad in the movie, that for the credits we could really go fun and upbeat and just like have a good time. It's so fun.
Yeah, I agree. So the next sort of section under songs is talking about the dramatic storytelling and the overall plot value of some of the songs. So I sort of talk about this generally in my notes, but I actually don't think that there is any superfluous music in Tangled.
I agree.
I do think that every single song that is in there is moving the plot forward, is instrumental. If anything, I think it can afford one more song. If they really wanted to like dip things in there. I'm a big fan of a closing number.
Yeah.
Fortunately, Tangled didn't necessarily need it. They figured out a way that closes the movie that's very in line with the overall tone and the way that we introduced the movie, because we had a prologue before we had music, so we didn't necessarily need it. Whereas in like Frozen and Frozen 2, where we sort of like open with an opening number, I feel like we need a closing number. But Disney does this thing recently that sort of gets me a little bit, where they don't give us a closing number for the musicals, and I'm like, we need a closing number.
I know.
Like,
I miss
just
them.
give us a reprise of something.
Yeah, but I honestly don't even like. I'm not missing Flynn Rider. I don't need him to have a song because number one, as we discussed, I think it's nice that the first time that he actually sings is when he's falling in love. But also, we just know enough about him. As it is without the music. And so we didn't throw in this fun song for no reason for him. He didn't need it.
Exactly. Like, I don't think he needs an I Want song. The first time that we see him, it's very, very clear what he wants.
Yeah. And I also I know that sometimes, maybe this is more on stage, but I also don't need any music around the climax of this movie either, because it's the final scene in the tower is so chilling that I love that there is no song. There's no like sad reprise of anything. It is just like dark, scary, and like real. Like we're dealing with death and daggers and scary things. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Even the healing incantation, like obviously the point of that is that it's short, but I want more. I love that. I think it's so haunting. And I love that it actually is music in the world of the movie, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, I love that. And I think having that come back a couple of times is really, really great.
Yeah. And I kind of talk about this also when I talk about the score, but I like how the healing incantation tune of it continues, even when it's not necessarily being sung.
Yes.
So then sort of moving on to the musical themes and overall structure of these songs in Tangled. I'm just going to say right now, Alan Menken, he is king of repetition and motif. It is one of the things that he, as a composer, is the best of the best at. When writing a melody, like he has this magic formula that works wonders every single time when he is introducing a musical phrase. He introduces the musical phrase, then he repeats it, but ends it or expands on it slightly. And then he repeats the phrase again in a new chord progression. And then it goes either into the chorus or back again for another verse. And it's genius. And this is why we get earworm songs from him every single time. So when you think of 7 a.m. the usual morning lineup, that's the musical phrase. Start on the chores and sweep till the floor's all clean. It's the same phrase again, but changed differently. And then polish and wax your laundry, it changes the chord progression. Like, go through all of his songs and you can find a million examples of it. And it's fantastic. It's why you always remember his music. You always do. I will also say, Tangled specifically, the musical style is much different from a lot of the work that people traditionally know Menken for, which is pop MT. This is pop folk combined with some musical theater. So it's lots of guitars and strings taking the lead in both the songs and the score. And I think what's kind of so genius about him working in this way, one, it sort of harkens back to some of the very early work of Alan Menken's before he started doing a lot of stuff with Disney. But the musical aesthetic matches so perfectly to the animation aesthetic of this surreal painting-like fantasy that's both epic but also small and warm and comfortable. And that's something that folk is very good at. I keep thinking like Hades Town, where you're able to manage this like huge epic story and you can build scale using folk music. But then there's nothing like taking it all away and just having like one simple moment of a folk score. And that is something that Alan Menken does in the songs and he does in the score. Like when you think of When Will My Life Begin, where it keeps
that
growing and growing
chord.
and growing. And then it just, boom, with the tomorrow night, the lights will appear. Like, it sinks.
Yeah, and in that way, I think the use of like the bouncy fluty sound in Mother Knows Best is just so smart, because kind of tied to what we were talking about when it comes to the lyrics, it's the passive aggressive sweet sound that kind of gets assigned to Mother Gothel that just makes her extra scary, because her music until the reprise of Mother Knows Best is not scary sounding. It's like da na 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 da da. Like you don't realize that this is about to be sinister until the reprise, when it's like brah, brah, and then she's scary.
And talking about instrumentation, like you sort of sub out the flute for like you get the like bell descending in the opening of it, the like church bell almost like moment where it's like that's like your dead giveaway that things are going dark. And this reprise is so smart. The flip of exchanging the lyric Mother Knows Best to Rapunzel Knows Best is so incredibly effective, and it quickly turns every single line into a passive aggressive threat, which is the way that Mother Gothel works. She's not, as I said, like the other big bads who like work in overt threats. Hers are always backhanded or under the table. She hardly ever is explicit in what she's doing until the very end, when she takes matters into her own hands and she like, stabs Flynn Rider. It's all plotting. It's all perception. It's all manipulating Rapunzel to want to stay with her and not just being a prisoner. Because I think like that's one of the most unique things about Mother Gothel is that wanting to have Rapunzel isn't enough for her. She wants to have Rapunzel and for Rapunzel to want to stay. All right, so now the score of Tangled. I have so many feelings. Okay. I'm going to start by looking at the musical themes from the songs that are brought into the score, or the motifs that are there. So the I See the Light motif is genius, and it mostly hits with the ways that it's used to underscore the scenes. So Menken reintroduces this motif that we literally just heard when I See the Light is sung, but he reintroduces it in a minor key with running strings to introduce the foreboding of the Stabbington brothers and Mother Gothel across the river, and it interrupts their blissful moment where we know that something is not quite right because they're about to kiss, and then it just goes the do 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 do, and it's so good, so good. And then we hear it again in the Tear Heals, which is the track that happens almost at the end of the soundtrack. And that's the moment that encapsulates the entire scene that takes place in the tower, the climax. And we hear the I See the Light motif played very, very slowly, again in a minor key. It honors the intervals, but riffs on the motif a little bit to bring us back to the moment of the lanterns as we watch Flynn and Rapunzel say goodbye as she's trying to heal him and before he cuts her hair. It's sad, it's drawn out, it's very legato, it's yearning, because it's like we remember the love song that they sang to each other, and we're acknowledging in this moment that can't happen. Beautiful. And then we have it again with a full fanfare and orchestra after Flynn is saved by Rapunzel's tear, and we transition to Corona and the wedding. Another great moment that I want to call out is Kingdom Dance. So this song, I think, is such a unique moment in the score because Alan Menken uses a lot of his songwriting techniques with this moment in the score, especially repetition, changing the movement of the song when it gets comfortable, something we see him do in like Topsy Turvy and Hunchback and Zero to Hero in Hercules, where you think you know what it is, and then just when you feel like you're grooving, he just like changes everything, and you're like, whoa, I feel like we're in a new song. It's unlike any of the other songs that we've heard. It blends the folk, it blends the pop, and it blends medieval music, which is incredible.
It does. That's my favorite part of it. Yeah, I love that.
And combined with the stunning visuals, it's like this is a moment in the score that becomes an earworm, like many of the songs.
I was going to say, I could sing the whole Kingdom Dance
exactly.
to you
and it's
right
because
now.
he approached
so
that moment in the same way that he approaches songs that are sung. I also want to call special attention to a moment. There's like a string descant before the jig moment. And the string descant is the tomorrow night, the lights will appear just like they do on my birthday each year. And that's the moment, like, as the child's like, these are for the lost princess. And Rapunzel's like looking at. There's this beautiful descant of the strings that happens over top of it all. And that moment, that is happening as we are transitioning to sunset and the lights are about to appear. Like, it's just a full, beautiful chef's kiss moment. Way to bring back a motif at exactly the right time.
Yeah.
So moving on from the motifs, I just want to call out some standout moments of underscoring. I mean, as evident, there's actually so much in this score that I'm obsessed with. But I think in the moments that it works best, it's whenever Menken transitions us from a grand traditional fantasy score to simple folk style seamlessly and like in the blink of an eye. It helps ground the movie in a really unique way of being expansive, like the fantasy story that it is, but then bringing it close to the small character study that the movie actually is at its heart. Like when you get to the end credits, they credit Mandy Moore, Zachary Levi, and Donna Murphy all across the row in their little like character drawings of their characters. And it's like, when you really think about it, those are your characters of the movie. Everyone else is just very, very supporting. This is truly a character study of these three people and set in this fantastic background against this classic fairy tale story. So I have a couple moments where you can really see this. So the first time we get this is in the prologue at the end of Flynn's narration over the title card as the music swells to reveal Walt Disney Pictures Presents. And the music swells and then it goes immediately just down into a guitar solo as the sun changes and the passage of time is sort of revealed on the tower. And then we zoom in and we see Rapunzel grown. We get this expansive, beautiful story about how this all came to be. And then boom, Rapunzel. It also happens in The Tear Heals, which is easily becoming one of my favorite tracks ever, because we have this epic orchestral arrangement of Flynn climbing the tower, getting stabbed by Mother Gothel, and then like it's just slow guitar motif in a minor key of I See the Light, and then it goes right back to a grand orchestra for Gothel's death, and then back to piano and guitar for Flynn and Rapunzel alone as Flynn dies. And the piano keeps teasing the chord progressions of both I See the Light and the healing incantation in that moment, because the chord progressions are actually very similar, and it's genius. It happens again after Flynn is saved and Rapunzel reunites with the family, where it has grown into the huge moment, and then it goes swoop right back down to guitar, where it actually blends motifs from the healing incantation and When Will My Life Begin seamlessly, which, like, fuck me, the storytelling of When Will My Life Begin, the healing incantation as Rapunzel is finally reunited with her family, get out.
Yeah.
But my favorite moment of the entire score by far is in Waiting for the Lights.
That's what I have too.
This is my favorite track. As the king and queen exit to see the lantern before releasing it into the sky, that was a moment where we have like the score sort of teasing the grandiose moment of like the lights are finally happening, and then it shrinks right back down into the guitar solo as the doors open and they approach the lantern. And as soon as the lantern floats into the air and all of the other lanterns are released, it goes from that really, really small, beautiful moment where it's like, this was the reason of everything. It's the king and queen. This was a day of celebration, and now it's a day of sadness.
So it really helps develop the king. We never hear him speak, yet that piece of music tells me so much about what kind of man he is. Number one, we see the single tear, which breaks my heart every single time. But the kind of music that accompanies that single tear tells me everything that I need to know about her parents, and it's enough to make me say, oh my God, she needs to get back to these two people because this music is telling me that they're the best.
Yeah.
I think it's magical.
One of the things that I got really, really excited about as I was revisiting this score was the intervals of that moment when they approach the lantern, the do 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 do. Those intervals are actually the same intervals in the flute solo in Kingdom Dance of the do 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 do. So it's like,
wow, man.
It takes the adrenaline of the day and then brings it to something so serious and closer to the purpose of the celebration. It's the somber side of the day that we just experienced.
Woo.
And I never realized. I'm like, oh, it's a riff on a motif that I always thought it was its own thing.
Me too. Wow.
But it's not. We've already heard this melody before. We spent the entire day hearing this melody.
Yeah. Wow.
Beautiful.
Ugh.
I just went off. There's so much of this score that I am in love with. I have loved this soundtrack since it came out. I mean, I would keep this in my car and I would go past all the songs and I would like blast the score because I'm a nerd.
But this one especially, as we said, these songs, a lot of the songs in the score really stand alone, like you said, as earworms, as something that you can hum, as pieces that really tell their own story within the song. With the Tangled score, I never have to try to remember what part of the movie any of the score is from. I know the first second I hear it. Yeah, and I think that's...
You always know. And it's because Alan Menken operates from a place of not just supporting the action of the story, but how can the music also tell the story? Mm-hmm. How can we make you feel in the music the way that the action makes you feel?
Yeah.
So with that, let's transition over to Princess and the Frog.
Alrighty. So The Princess and the Frog. First of all, I just want to start out by saying the first track of the soundtrack of The Princess and the Frog is Never Knew I Needed by Neo, which is the credit song. And I understand why they lead with this song, because it was the big single from the movie. It was like, making it matter to people who are older who want a little bit of pop and Neo in their life. I get it. But I think we're really robbed of the opening of the actual, the first song in the actual movie, the Down in New Orleans prologue. Because if we had that as our first track, the soundtrack would begin, "The evening star is shining bright." Even reading it, I get chills.
I know, because you also think of Happily Ever After, too.
That's what I was just going to say. That's how you know it's good, because that's how they use it in Happily Ever After to open the whole thing. And I think the evening star is shining bright, so make a wish and hold on tight. There's magic in the air tonight and anything can happen. What an incredible opening to a fairy tale.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So good.
Yeah, I had the same note about Neo's Never Knew I Needed, because I love that song.
I do too, yeah.
So much, but I'm like, no, this definitely belongs at the end, because the track listing for The Princess and the Frog of the songs operates very, very similar to a cast album or a cast recording, where the songs give you basically what you sort of need to know about the plot to kind of put the pieces together.
So true.
And to start with Never Knew I Needed breaks that entire...
It's a bit of a spoiler.
Yeah.
It's a spoiler alert. Like, I don't love it at the beginning. So...
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about that at the end, which is where it belongs.
Great. Start with Down in New Orleans, the prologue.
Yeah. So what a kick-in opening. Okay, starting it with
Such
Tiana.
a good opening.
Starting it with Anything Can Happen. Amazing. And then I actually really love that it transitions into the actual Down in New Orleans song, because we've started with a little bit of a fairy tale vibe, but then we go right into the New Orleans jazz sound that really grounds it in the fact that it's going to be an American fairy tale. It's going to take place in a little bit more of a modern time period than a lot of our other classic Disney princess films. And it's a fun song. For me, I wish that transition was a little bit easier, because for me, some of the lyrics in Down in New Orleans, the version sung by Dr. John, for me, some of the lyrics that Randy Newman has written talking about, the sugar barons and some of the more realistic aspects of New Orleans, it feels a little off to me. Maybe in like the second song, we could talk about that. I don't know. For me, we just talked about the Evening Star. And now I get New Orleans is so important to the setting of the story. But to me, it just leaned a little too heavily on realistic elements for it to be totally immersive. Because for me, like hearing the sugar barons really like took me out of it for a minute, because that to me has negative connotations as well. Which fine, if we're going to acknowledge the reality that Tiana is living in, then we really have to do that. And we don't do that in this movie all of the time as a Black woman,
Yeah. I think as an opening number, it structurally, like dramatic storytelling, plot value wise, I think it takes a really interesting approach in allowing an omniscient narrator to sing about the setting, which is, as you said, as much of a character in this film as any of the other characters. And I also, I do like that it helps introduce the players of the story before they even speak.
Yeah.
Because I love like vignettes with that. I hear what you're saying about some of the lyrics just taking you too far into reality when we're just coming from there's magic in the air tonight. I think it doesn't put me off as much, in that I do like this sort of balance between there's magic and there's realism at the same time, and then we're going to put them together in the story.
Yeah, that's really the MO of this movie, is what really looking at the soundtrack made me realize. So that's a good point. Yeah.
So that it doesn't put me off, but I definitely hear what you're saying, because it is a departure from some of the more traditional opening number moments that we've gotten in Disney musicals up until Princess and the Frog and like Tarzan.
Yeah. But that being said, I genuinely really enjoy this song. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, it's a fun song.
All right, fine, I lied. I'm going to skip around a little, just because while we're talking about it, I think the reprise at the end of the movie, when Tiana takes it over, is the perfect ending to her journey. And her, at the beginning of the movie, Dr. John says, dreams do come true at New Orleans. But the way she sings it at the end, dreams do come true.
Yeah. Oh, she's crying, folks. She's crying. Oh, God. Oh, God. Oh, wow. Oh, wow, that got her.
What just happened to me?
You're willing dreams to happen. Because that's what Tiana's doing. You felt it. You channeled Tiana in that moment. Wow. I wish y'all could witness this.
So, on that note,
do you want to call out a moment of the reprise of Down in New Orleans where, like, yes, I love how this ends for Tiana, because it's also such a great moment of like, we start by having this omniscient narrator who's singing Down in New Orleans, and then we end with our leading lady taking it from him and being like, no, New Orleans, this world is what I'm making of it. I feel like she's just like grabbing it all in her fist and is like, no, this is what it is. And it's just like it gives us a moment to recognize where we began. This is why I talk about having a closing number, even if it's just a reprise at the end, because we need these moments to remember where we started when we're ending.
Yeah, it really makes a fantastic case for a closing number.
Yeah.
I really love them. I think we need them more often than we think we do. Yeah.
All right. Almost there.
Yeah, almost there. I mean, this is the champion of this movie. Like, if this movie ends up winning, it's because of this song. Because it's what a jump we've had other strong Disney princesses, do not get me wrong, but I think it's such a jump for Disney princess anthems because Tiana isn't wishing for something or wondering what the next step in her journey is going to be. She knows. She knows it's only a matter of time. I used to play the song in college when I was stressed, and it would remind me what I was doing it all for. And I think it's truly an adult Disney princess anthem. I mean, you know what? Is this a little on the nose? Sure, but I love it. Fairy tales can come true, but you got to make them happen. It all depends on you. I don't think we've seen anything like that up until Tiana. And again, you know, now that we were just talking about the fact that this is the blend of fairy tales and realism, having her acknowledge fairy tales while being within her own and not even knowing it is so fun. Like, I love that.
That's a really, really great functional lyrical moment. I pulled out the lyric, "This old town can slow you down, people taking the easy way, but I know exactly where I'm going. I'm getting closer and closer every day." I'm like, this is that character insight moment of Tiana where it's like we see not just what she wants, but we see her relationship to the people and the world around her in that moment. It strikes this like great balance of attention on herself and the attention out on other people in this like really interesting way. Yeah, it's an I want song, but it's like an I want and I'm already doing song.
How amazing.
Which is fantastic.
Yeah. I also love the build of this song. I love the opening of it. I love what spurs her into singing the song. I think a lot of times we'll start singing right away, but she's like, oh, she's busy. She's like, oh, you're going to make me sing right now about this because you're trying to tell me you want grandkids, but I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
And that brings up all these feelings for her. And then she has to sing. And I love that the tune is so upbeat and hopeful, but her lyrics, they're hopeful too, but they're also very practical. And I think that's Tiana in a nutshell. And I think it's just like the perfect song for her.
Yeah. The scene into song for this song is so good because it's not a song that like has a sort of intro and then it begins.
Yeah.
It has the dialogue intro and then the accompaniment just starts like very just like blasé recitative almost.
Yeah. And then she just walks into the song almost. Yeah.
And it's just sort of like relaxed and then it starts cranking up. It's a fantastic scene into song moment.
Yes. So Friends on the Other Side. This is Dr. Facilier's song. This is the longest song on the album.
It is.
You know, I don't know. So this does not 100% kick ass for me as a villain song. It's like really good, okay? But I think Dr. Facilier, you know, was built around Captain Hook and that kind of villain who, you know, those villains enjoy villainy, okay? And so for me, I wanted to hear a little bit about why he enjoys this and like why he thinks he's so awesome because he does seem to be that kind of villain. So, you know, talking about his friends on the other side, you know, these spirits who he has power over. It implies that he's powerful, but I don't learn a lot more about Dr. Facilier. He spends so much of the song talking about Naveen and Lawrence and the things that they want. So, all right, I already know, even from the first time we see him in the movie, that he's involved in voodoo. But I want to find out more. I want to find out some deeper reason about why he's doing this. And
yeah, we only get that through dialogue in the movie. And I think his song, there are opportunities in this song where we could see a little bit more of that. Like moments where even just a moment where kind of like in Poor Unfortunate Souls, where it's striking this balance, because I feel like that's the biggest parallel here, because it's another person selling the protagonist on something that's actually not great for them.
Yeah.
I feel like Poor Unfortunate Souls does this great job. It's very clever in the lyrics and in the moments where it like takes a moment away from Ariel and like Ursula addresses Flotsam and Jetsam and stuff like that to get a little bit more about Ursula as she's doing this thing. Yeah. And that's something that I think this song doesn't take advantage of, where it's like, we can serve the function of the song of like, we need to get Naveen and Lawrence to make a deal so that the transformation can happen. and we need to sell them on that process while there are things in there. I think lyrically there could be more
asides or more
things happening.
And storytelling wise, it makes perfect sense that Tiana is not the one who gets involved in voodoo. She's got her head is screwed on too straight for that.
Yeah.
So because the villain then is not tied directly to her, I think what I needed then is a reprise of this song in the graveyard towards the end of the movie when he's like, Facilier is like, I'm about to win this. Like, it's about to be a wrap. So that when he has his moment where Tiana's there, he can really... I was just about to say menace her. Why do I say that all the time? So that he can really have a direct tie to her and really threaten her specifically because she's the hero.
Yeah.
I think that's why it doesn't quite land for me.
Yeah. I do have to say, I love the lyric, "Are you ready?"
Me
I think it's
too.
so fantastic.
And that once they handshake and everything, that's the build there.
Yeah,
is
that's
great.
where this song really shines because it's such a great lyric for the moment because it's rhetorical. It literally articulates the moment of the inciting incident of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of performative where it's like asking us, the audience, if we're ready for the journey to start because it's happening. So I think like that I think is like my memorable moment from that song. But I think a lot of this actually has to do with a lot of the musical themes and structures that Randy Newman uses in The Princess and the Frog because unlike Alan Menken, Randy Newman, he's reliant less on repetition, especially Menken's use of near or almost exact repetition.
Mm-hmm.
So he's heavily influenced by jazz. We know this in like all of his work. He's a fantastic person to be on this movie. He deals in piano, he deals in horns all the time in all of his scores. Like it honestly feels a little bit like a no-brainer. But he brings a style that's much more reminiscent to the improvisational aspects of jazz and riffing on themes that are very quickly introduced and then immediately riffed on because the riff is more important than the theme.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that's kind of what ends up happening with Friends on the Other Side, where it goes all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
Like the whole song, it changes
does.
into like a million different things because it's not focused on taking the theme and then like repeating it over and over again. It's like, let's just introduce the theme real quick. Great. And then let's see how many different ways we can riff on it and move it all over until the piece is something that we didn't start with.
Which I think if he didn't do it in that style and did a more Alan Menken style, repeating a theme, then we could have placed that in other parts of the movie as a reminder that Dr. Facilier is still a threat in all of this, even though we don't really see him right there a lot of the time as a direct threat.
Yeah.
And I think we need that for the stakes of the movie, but there isn't a piece of it necessarily to take and to repeat.
I think honestly, if there were some more lyrical moments with Dr. Facilier, again, where we learn more about him, I think we could forgive some of the musical inconsistencies of it.
I think if they had written Dr. Facilier a little bit better overall, maybe this wouldn't be as much of an issue because then we would have a solid character to stand on. And then then we can riff and go to different places in the music. But I think part of this is just my issue with Dr. Facilier, which is that like standalone, I'm like, cool villain. I like him.
He's such a cool villain.
And then in the story, I'm like, but I don't know. I don't feel that. I don't know how else to explain it.
Yeah, because I mean it's really what you're saying where he's kind of the villain at the beginning and he's the villain at the end, but especially when they're in the bayou, it's the shadow demons that are going after them. They're the immediate threat.
Yeah.
So if he was in the bayou with them, I feel like that would be fun.
Yeah, I agree. So next we've got When We're Human. And so, in terms of pushing the plot forward, I think this song is a good way to show that Tiana and Naveen still have things that they need to learn on their journey because in the parts that they sing in the song, they're stuck in their ways.
Yeah.
Tiana is just focused on like getting this done so that she can continue on with making her restaurant. And Naveen is just like, I'm going to live my best life. Whatever. Nothing really matters. It's great because Tiana quotes almost there directly, just like as a little reminder of who she is and who we're dealing with. But, this theme is not the most original ever because we have Human again from Beauty and the Beast. It's a theme that we've heard before. it makes sense. That's the goal of this journey, is to become human again. But for me, it feels a little bit of the, we have a lot of sidekick songs in this movie, and I love them, and they're all really fun, and they're catchy, and they all serve a purpose, yet I feel like at least one of them could have been switched out for something else. Definitely not Mama Odie's song, Dig a Little Deeper, because once we finally reach Mama Odie, we need her to sing something. But then this, and then followed by Gonna Take You There, that Ray sings. It's hard because I love Gonna Take You There just because I find it to be delightful. Like he says, follow the bouncing butt. Like I'm done.
Yeah.
And I love singing about the vibe of the bayou. That's a huge, again, really, like, as you said, like New Orleans is a character in this. Like, so, yep, tell me the vibe of the bayou because that's where we are right now. And I love it.
And that's the earworm
Ray.
because that's the repetitive song. That's like that. And I think Dig a Little Deeper are his exceptions to the jazzy role. Both of those follow more of traditional, like, repetition musical theater pop things.
Yeah. So
and that's why they get stuck in your head.
Yeah, right. Gonna take you. When I went to New Orleans with my friends, we sang Going Down the Bayou at like every 10 seconds because he nailed it. Like there's something about the feeling of this song that is so New Orleans and so right. But a couple, like, When We're Human is kind of a comedy number-ish in its own way. Gonna Take You There is definitely a comedy number because we get to see all of the different personalities of all the Fireflies and it's hilarious. But it feels, I don't necessarily want to lose either of them, but I know that one of them could probably go. And it's probably Gonna Take You There, but it's fun. So I don't know.
Yeah. The fact that Ray has 2 songs in this and Naveen has 0 and yet Naveen is supposed to be our second protagonist is a little bit hard to swallow if we're trying to like commit to the musical of this. I think Naveen needs a bigger moment in this.
Especially because he's the one that the villain is going after. So he's important. Yeah. Like, he needs to sing something. And also, he plays the ukulele, so we could have used that as a device pretty easily. Like, come on.
Yeah. We get his moment in When We're Human.
Yeah.
But I don't think that that's sufficient enough. I think just like one more moment for Naveen, like maybe if he reprises Ma Belle Evangeline or something like that.
Or like,
I don't know, but I feel like we need a moment to develop him a little bit more.
It would be cute even if he did something with Almost There, like even if it's reassuring Tiana that they're almost there, something.
Yeah. Going Down the Bayou doesn't necessarily progress the plot forward.
It doesn't at all. It's so much fun.
So
I really hope that this is what's in the ride. I need this to be what we bounce along to when we are on the new log flume. Like,
I mean, that has to take the place of like Laugh in Place when you're like going from one level to the next level as you're climbing up. Like it just has to be gonna take you, gonna take you all the way down.
Oh my gosh. All right, so then we can't lose it. So anyway, so then going into Ma Belle Evangeline, that again, like you said, Ray sings again. This is like this movie's, Bella Notte, where we can have a moment for the romantic couple, but it's not a love duet sung by them. Definitely, we need a romantic moment for Tiana and Naveen, for sure. I love the soft guitars. I love the trumpet break for them to have a little dance. I'm okay with Tiana and Naveen not having a love duet. I'm fine with it being sung by Ray, who is like the epitome and like, the symbol of love in this movie. But like you said, then I need some other kind of moment, especially for Naveen because he doesn't have one, some kind of musical moment about him falling in love. I think we get a good build to it in the dialogue. I think they do a nice job with it. But
if this is a musical, let it be a musical.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I realize that I guess now that we're talking about it, a lot of my things that I have to say about these songs are just like storytelling structure-wise because I find them to be all quite delightful. I love the bluegrass feeling.
I love listening to them.
Yeah, they're awesome. It's really just about the storytelling. And, so Dig a Little Deeper, definitely needed. As I said, it's like the bibbity-bobbity-boo song for a modern audience because it's like, and it's also like, the opposite of Poor Unfortunate Souls. It's like all the souls here are good. Like these are people who are finding like what they actually need and being okay afterwards. I love that we're touching on gospel, which we haven't really hit on yet. That's like a huge part of New Orleans style music as well. And I think I'm coming up with all these reprises because I just need more, like you've been saying and making me realize, I need more repetition with some of these songs and the themes especially. But I also just need these to work a little bit more storytelling wise. So I was like, okay, maybe because she sings Blue Skies and Sunshine Guaranteed, which by the way, I love that. I've seen it on a t-shirt before. I think it's a great lyric.
Yeah.
I think we could have used that somewhere in the wedding at the end. I don't know, Blue Skies and Sunshine Guaranteed. Love, married. Like it's there. It's usable.
Yeah, I will say the Blue Skies and Sunshine Guaranteed, the final rendition of that at the end of the song does feel slightly reminiscent chord wise, interval wise, as the Dreams Do Come True in New Orleans.
Oh yeah, with Tiana just busting it out both times. Yeah. Okay, so fine. She's finding her voice. I see. Okay.
Like I could see a mashup of those two moments.
Yeah.
And I think musically they would fit. I think they
would fit. See, we need her to take one and we need Naveen to take the other one. And like, I don't know, they harmonize, they sing it at the same time.
Or honestly, if they just have like a blue skies and sunshine, dreams do come true in New Orleans. Like that.
You ruined me. Oh my God. Oh.
But they couldn't sing that at night.
I know. Oh no. But also if we had Naveen actually also sing Blue Skies and Sunshine, like he's actually feeling that would be special. We don't get to see him do that ever. Of like really break out and be like, I'm joyful too.
Yeah.
Damn it. You just made me realize that the repetition in these songs is in theme and not in musical theme, in like thematic storytelling theme. And that is the issue. Because we have a lot of You Can Do It songs, which, okay, it's Tiana's story. That makes sense. That's her whole deal. Is like, I can do this.
Yeah.
But we need more texture to her story in maybe a moment where it's like, uh-oh, maybe we can't do this.
Yeah.
And I needed one thing that's really, I mean, Ray dying is like the worst thing ever. It breaks my heart. But I need something else that's like, yeah, and then you face really hard things that make you think that it's never going to happen. And she reprises almost there in like a sad way. Yeah.
Yes. And that reprise, I have that written down. I'm like, that reprise is excellent.
Yeah, that's great.
Because it's so different from all of the other tracks that we're getting in this thing. Or it's like, oh, this is our sad moment.
Yeah.
This is our moment where things might not be okay. Yeah. But it's not its own separate track because it happens so quickly. They actually put it in Ray Laid Low.
Yeah, like, I know. It's hidden in there. Yeah.
But that moment, I'm like, yes. This moment's so good. But it's also so short.
Yeah.
So I think it's like that moment really stands out to me.
Yeah.
Because one, it's an excellent reprise. But two, it's because it's one of the few times that we differ from the types of song that we're getting in this because they're all the You Can Do It songs.
Yeah.
I will say this does make a great pump up album because it's all You Can Do It songs.
That's why at the beginning of this, I said I wasn't sure who was going to win. I'm starting to have a feeling, but my genuine love for the songs on the soundtrack is really deep. Like they really get me going. Like they really do. Including, as we were saying, now we can talk about Never Knew I Needed. I think it's a win in the same way that Something That I Want is, and that it's just generic enough, but if you're listening to it after the movie, you're like, oh, that's about Tiana and Naveen. That is so cute. This song also turns the love song on its head because it's not, you were always my dream. You're my dream come true. It's like, honestly, wasn't planning on falling in love with you at all. But now you've totally changed my life. I love the lyric that says, I must admit you were not a part of my book. I think that's really special. And I think this really goes head to head with Something That I Want in terms of great pop twist on the story. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I will not be able to choose. I will not choose between this song and Something That I Want, and you won't be able to make it.
Okay. So.
Moving on to the score?
Yeah, on to the score. So the main thing that I have to say about the score is that I did notice some repetition in here that I loved. I do not think there's quite enough, but my favorite is the Belle Evangeline theme. At the beginning of
Mhm.
the movie, when James, Tiana's father, shows her the evening star, we hear that theme for the first time. And then when I was listening and thinking about it, we get the Belle Evangeline theme a couple of other times. And the other thing that gets repeated the most is like the jaunty down in New Orleans keys repeat, which I love. So
Yeah.
for me, overall, I think it's a great score for background music. Like, I can totally hear it in the parks. Like, they could play it in the parks and I probably wouldn't realize that it was Princess and the Frog, which I don't know if that's a good thing. But some of it really sounds like Toy Story to me.
I know. There's, I think, some reasons for that. So honestly, in terms of themes and motifs, a lot of the musical themes and motifs that are introduced in the score to me don't always feel like they're being expanded upon or looked at in a new way when
Mhm.
they're introduced in the score. So like when we get the Mabel Evangeline moments or moments where Down in New Orleans comes back or Almost There comes back, it's almost verbatim of what we've already heard. We
Mhm.
don't hear him playing with it to see what else we can do with it. Could we, like, instead of going up, what if we went down at the, like, those sorts of things that are really instrumental, no pun intended, in exploring mood.
Yeah. At the part in It's Gonna Be Good, it is so sad though when he repeats like the part of My Belle Evangeline, that's look how she lights up the sky, and it's right as Ray is passing away.
Yes.
My
I have a
God.
note about this is going to be good. I think that's the finest moment in the entire score.
I definitely agree.
It helps
Yeah,
us
that's one of my
navigate
standouts.
in a way that I have so much respect for Randy Newman for this. He helps us navigate through one of the darkest moments in a Disney movie, where one of
Devastating.
our supporting characters that we've spent so much time with straight up dies, transitions into a star, and then immediately we're in a wedding. That transition is one where if someone gave it to me in a script, I would be like, we need more pages between here and here because there's not enough air. And I think Randy Newman does it with the score. And so I will give him all the
agree.
props in the world for that.
Yeah.
The solo trumpet for the processional is perfect. And I'm like, that is the moment that I've been looking for in this whole movie, of like just a moment where we can just sit with something simple
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't really happen outside of that moment. It's different, it's purposeful, it's seeking out to affect our mood. And that track makes me a little bit mad because I'm like, I feel like this is so much of what the whole score could be, but it's not. Ray Mama Odie is actually one of my other favorite tracks in the score because it feels like the first time that we're exploring Almost There a little bit more. Musically, it's in a slower swing that is less obvious than just bringing back the song verbatim. But my biggest complaint is I feel like we bring back motifs almost exactly as they were originally introduced, and we don't change them and we don't explore them. For someone who seems very interested in improvisation and riffing and jazz, those moments are like the only things that we bring back exactly the same. The score strikes a really good balance of setting us firmly in place. Like, we definitely know we're in New Orleans when we're listening to this score, while accentuating action of the story in a way that's very reminiscent to classic cartoons, where like as a character is like falling down steps, the music goes like that, those sorts of things. Randy Newman's
like the gator chase in the bayou.
Exactly. He is top notch on that. And that's why he does extremely well with Toy Story and Pixar films, because they are more sophisticated, but harkening back to some of those older cartoons with their humor. Not so much anymore, as we sort of developed into something a little bit more sophisticated. And I think that's why Randy Newman doesn't necessarily work on some of those. That's why we get Thomas Newman, his cousin, and why we get Michael Giacchino.
They're related.
Yes, they are.
Boy, oh boy.
Yeah. But personally, I feel that working in this way, where you're accentuating action with the score, it makes the score so unpredictable in a way that doesn't always make sense or is easy to listen to outside of watching the action of the film.
Yeah.
To be honest, I really struggled listening to this score.
I'm not going to disagree, honestly.
Because it's hard to follow, and it doesn't evoke emotion because he's focused so much on action that I can't necessarily remember where this is happening in the story, because it doesn't always feel like the the story is being told through the music, it feels like it's like this is serving to accompany the action as opposed to telling a story in its own way. So the pro of this is that when it's matched with the action of the film, it makes those actions so much sharper and cleaner and crisper. And so that when a laugh hits, it really hits. Or when a dramatic moment hits, it really, really hits. But it makes it very hard to listen to on its own.
One of my favorite moments of the underscore is at the very beginning when we're seeing Tiana when she's younger. So I think it's proving your point, actually. And the change that happens in the music when she pops out of the house and says, "Hey, everybody, I made gumbo." It matches. There's like again, I think Randy Newman's good at this. There's a very childlike sound and feeling going on that that's why we love the Toy Story soundtrack. That works so well in that moment and makes me swell with pride for her. But then when I hear it on its own, I had to take a minute and be like, oh my God, yeah, I think that's the moment where she says she made gumbo.
Yeah. It's hard to pinpoint the actual moments because it's almost like it's so specific that it doesn't have any sort of relationship to any of the music that's around it. So the only way you know where it is when it's matched with the visual.
Now that I'm thinking about it, I've never listened to the Princess and the Frog score. I've listened to the Tangled score on its own. I think I bump Princess and the Frog songs more, but the Tangled score, by far. I don't think, I've never listened to the Princess and the Frog score.
Yeah, I've listened to the score maybe 4 times total in my life. But I think the other thing about Randy Newman that I don't particularly care for, and I think is a downside, especially with Princess and the Frog, is his orchestrations and instrumentation.
Oh, no.
All the time. Yes.
Come on.
Well, no, it's not that anything is he chose the wrong instruments or anything like that, but it almost always feels like the same full sound all the time.
Okay.
The reason why that solo trumpet processional moment sticks out is because it's one of the first times that we just let one instrument just take it.
I wonder if you would feel differently if we were comparing this with something else, because that's the main win of Tangled is having the solo guitar all the time.
It's not always just having a solo guitar in Tangled. I think if I compared it with other things, there are other moments where you can let a solo moment happen, or you can strip things down so it's just a couple instruments, or it's let's just let the strings handle this. He's so reliant all the time on heavy string bass combined with horns.
Yeah.
And that it's very present in every single track. So it doesn't really, we don't have moments where we strip everything away for one instrument to take over a theme, or drop out the bass so that we can just have this moment that's a little bit airier, that's just higher. It's just always full, which is great for some things, but I think in a fairy tale, we need a little bit more leveling. In Toy Story, I think it works great because Toy Story is full. Toy Story is blum, blah, blum, blah, blah. It's a cartoon. It's yes. But if we're trying to make this fairy tale where we're exploring the ranges of emotion and falling in love and making room for love and working hard and growing and all that sort of stuff, I need more variance in the sound that I'm getting. And to me, with a lack of bringing in themes, a lack of exploring those themes in the score, and the score sounding 80% of the time the same sound, that makes it really, really hard to listen to.
It stinks because I know he can do it. I know he can do it because
we
in the
know
opening
he can do
track,
it because he does it in the last track.
Yeah, and in the opening track too, when Tiana and Charlotte are listening to the fairy tale at the beginning, that part felt very classic Disney fairy tale to me, with the strings, not leaning on horns and not leaning on bass, straight up Disney strings. I know he can do it.
I know he can do it too. He also does it in other pieces. He does it in Bug's Life.
Yeah.
He does it in Monsters Incorporated too.
Mm-hmm.
But he doesn't really do it here, and we need it here.
I think if we were judging this as soundtracks removed from their movies, which it's impossible to do, of course, Princess and the Frog might edge forward for me. But you can't really divorce it from the story of the movie and what it does for the story.
Oh, I honestly think if you took the movie away from it, it would make Princess and the Frog's position worse for me because I would be like, you're just giving me this score. I'm not feeling anything.
Oh, score-wise,
Like-
for sure. I think whole soundtrack, though.
Whole soundtrack, I would lean Tangled because I'm like, I enjoy the songs well enough and I can listen to this score because the score tells me the story.
I think soundtrack alone, meaning taken away from like the context of the movie and everything and what the songs do, I think I pick Princess and the Frog because I just want to listen to the songs themselves. I enjoy a lot of the Tangled songs because I know what's happening in the movie. They're not necessarily pop them in my headphones, bop, enjoy the music. Especially for me, like if I'm trying to, of course, I don't think I could pick between Never Knew I Needed and Something I Want because those are both amazing. And I'm, like you said, I won't choose. Do that. But then if you put When Will My Life Begin and Almost There against each other, Almost There for me wins by a landslide. I actually would put When Will My Life Begin almost at the bottom of all the Disney princess songs.
Oh, wow.
And then if I'm thinking Mother Knows Best versus Friends on the Other Side,
It's Mother Knows Best.
Yeah.
Mother Knows Best is one of the best villain entries that we've had in a while. Because we also haven't gotten that many villain songs recently.
Yeah, I know. That's a huge issue. Yeah, that's a mistake.
Yeah. See, honestly, from this analysis of everything that we've talked about in this episode, I was leaning at the beginning of this towards Tangled being the better soundtrack. And I think a lot of the things that you called out about story in Princess and the Frog were things that I wasn't necessarily thinking about.
I ruined it for Princess. It's so funny. I really went for it as if I was attacking it, but I'm rooting for Princess and the Frog. But I don't know if
that really tipped the scales for me, where I do think that Tangled 100% is the better soundtrack overall. If we split it score versus songs, that's a little bit trickier for me when we're comparing songs. That one we would have to go song by song for me. But score-wise, 100% Tangled. I think Tangled is a much better score than Princess and the Frog.
I know it's the correct answer. Like, it's the correct answer. I will give it to Tangled. But I just have to say, Princess and the Frog really sits in a very special place in my heart.
It does for me,
and I think
too.
a lot of my love for these characters, I think a large part of that actually is because of their songs and the things that they express in their songs. So
I agree.
That's a win.
I think the songs of Princess and the Frog are the strongest musical bits of it. I think if we're specifically calling things out, I think Down in New Orleans, Almost There, and Dig a Little Deeper are some of the three strongest songs that we've had in a recent musical. But Tangled's the winner.
Hard. That was hard.
Tangled's the winner. This was a hard one.
I'm stressed.
Alrighty, folks. So that's going to do it. Tangled is the winner. Tangled, that soundtrack is awesome.
I don't feel 100% amazing about it, though, okay? I just don't.
I mean, I feel pretty amazing about it.
I accept Tangled. I feel uneasy.
Confident.
I'm uneasy, and I'm a little sad.
They're both so great, and I'm not trading either of them for anything.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Don't take it away from
but
me.
Tangled's
I couldn't.
All right, so that's going to do it for us for this episode. If you liked what you heard, or honestly, if you didn't like what you heard, please give us another try. You can leave us a rating and a review in Apple Podcasts, on Stitcher, or on most podcast apps. Also, make sure to hit subscribe or follow wherever you're listening so that all of our episodes get downloaded to your device so you never miss anything, especially whenever we put any bonus content out, which is usually a surprise.
And we would love it if you would follow us on social media. We are at Poor Unfortunate Podcast on Facebook and Instagram, and at Unfortunate Pod on Twitter. We are also on TikTok at Poor Unfortunate Podcast. I can't make any guarantees about the content, but we have a Brandy Cinderella video up that's been doing pretty well. So who knows? Pop over, follow us. I make no promises. Also, if you are loving the vibe of this podcast and you want to talk to some other people about it, we would love if you would join the Poor Unfortunate Fam, which is our private Facebook group for our listeners. And there's always fun things going on in there.
Yeah.
That's what I've got to say. I am loving what's happening in the fam. Everyone is having wonderful conversations, sharing updates, taking silly quizzes, and bonding. And the more the merrier. So please come and join us.
I will also say that we do have a listener feedback survey, which is in any of our website links on our social media accounts. You can click it. It's 10 questions. Basically, us just trying to figure out what you like to listen to when you're listening to this podcast, things that you like us talking about, ways that we could improve, all in service of making sure that you're getting the things that you would like to listen to and that we're giving you the best podcast that we can possibly give you, because we love that. And then I will just close by saying, as I usually do, it does take us some money to keep the podcast up and running and coming to you, especially keeping it free and for the most part ad-free. We do have a PayPal account. It is also in those website links on our social media accounts, in addition to being in the episode description. We will accept anything that you might have to give. You can make a donation of $1, $5, $10 more. You can make it monthly. You can make it a one-time donation. All of it just goes right into the podcast and making sure that we can keep this going, because we do it all out of pocket. We do it all out of the love for this, and we don't want to stop. So that's it. All right, folks. Until next time, Beluga Savruga.